Throughout human history, people have done some genuinely unhinged things to each other in the name of justice. And I use that word very loosely, because what you are about to hear has nothing to do with fairness and everything to do with sending a message. We are starting bad and working our way down to the stuff of actual nightmares. These are the worst punishments in human history. Number 10. The breaking wheel. If you were a criminal in medieval Europe, the breaking wheel was one of the most common ways your life could end. A large wooden wagon wheel 5 to 6 feet across. The criminal would be tied to the ground, and the executioner would use the wheel as a blunt instrument, smashing it down onto the arms and legs repeatedly. But here's the thing. The executioner was trained specifically to break every bone without killing the person. Once every limb was completely shattered, the criminal was woven through the spokes while still alive and hoisted up on a pole for the public to watch. Some rulers allowed a mercy stroke to end things faster, others specifically forbade it. Your fate depended entirely on whoever was signing the orders that day. Number 9. Flaying Alive. The Assyrian Empire around 900 BC had a very specific approach to dealing with enemies. They invented flaying, the deliberate removal of a person's skin while they were still alive. This was not done quickly. Trained executioners worked slowly from the extremities inward, keeping the person conscious for as long as possible. The Assyrians were so proud of this that they carved detailed images of it into their palace walls. Those carvings still exist in museums today. You can go look at them right now if you want to have a genuinely terrible afternoon. Number 8. Boiling alive, used across ancient China, medieval Europe, and the Ottoman Empire. Reserved for the worst offenders. Traitors, poisoners, those who betrayed the ruling class. The Ottoman Empire had a particularly cruel variation where the condemned was placed into the cauldron before the liquid was heated, meaning they experienced the entire process from lukewarm to boiling. Henry VIII of England loved this punishment so much that in 1531 he passed an actual law making it the official method of execution for anyone convicted of poisoning. Number 7. The Judas Cradle. Medieval Europe had a very creative relationship with torture devices, and the Judas Cradle might be the most uncomfortable thing ever designed by a human being. A large wooden chair with a pyramid-shaped spike on the seat. The condemned was suspended above it with ropes and slowly lowered until they made contact with the point. The device was almost never cleaned between uses, so even if a prisoner survived the initial ordeal, they were usually dead within days from infection. There are documented cases from the Spanish Inquisition where prisoners were kept on this device for entire nights while guards worked in shifts. The prisoner, of course, had no shifts. Number 6. Crucifixion. Most people know crucifixion from a religious context, but the historical reality is far more brutal than typically described. The condemned was first flogged until the skin of the back was essentially destroyed, then forced to carry the crossbeam through the city in that condition. Death on the cross came from asphyxiation, not blood loss. The position made breathing almost impossible without pushing up on the nails in the feet. This cycle of pushing up to breathe and collapsing back down could last for days. After the slave revolt led by Spartacus in 71 BC, over 6,000 people were crucified along the road from Capua to Rome. Every road into the city lined with crosses for 130 miles. Number 5. Sawing. This one requires very little explanation, and somehow that makes it worse. The condemned was suspended upside down between two posts with legs spread apart. Then a large saw was used starting from the groin downward. The upside-down positioning kept blood flowing to the brain, keeping the person conscious far longer than they would otherwise be. The Roman Emperor Caligula reportedly used this method as entertainment at banquets. Some records from ancient China describe versions using a thin wire instead of a saw, making the process considerably slower. These records were not written as condemnations. They were routine government paperwork. Number 4. The Brazen Bull, invented in 570 BC by a craftsman named Perillos, who brought it to the tyrant Phalaris as a gift. A hollow bronze bull, life-size, with a door on the side. The condemned was locked inside and a fire lit underneath. As the bronze heated, acoustic tubes in the head transformed the screams into sounds resembling a bellowing bull. Perillos considered this a feature. Phalaris was so impressed he immediately tested it on Perillos himself. When the bull eventually cooled, the bones inside were removed and sold at markets as trinkets. Phalaris used the device until he was overthrown. His subjects executed him in his own invention. Number 3. Buried alive. Rome had a specific version of this for Vestal virgins who broke their vows. Roman law prohibited shedding their blood, so they found a workaround. A small underground chamber with a narrow bed, a lamp, and just enough food and water for a few days, then sealed. Roman law was technically satisfied. No blood was shed. The fear of being buried alive was so widespread in Victorian England that coffins were designed with bells attached to strings inside them, just in case. Number 2. Drawing and quartering. England's contribution to this list. Reserved exclusively for high treason. First, the condemned was dragged through the streets on a wooden frame, then hanged but not to death, just long enough to partially choke before being cut down while still conscious. Then emasculated and disemboweled with organs removed and burned in front of them while they were still alive to watch. Finally beheaded and cut into 4 pieces, each sent to a different city and displayed on spikes above the gates. This punishment was used from the 13th century all the way through to 1782. The last execution drew a crowd of 20,000 people. Number 1. Lingchi, death by 1,000 cuts. Nothing on this list comes close. Used in Imperial China from 900 AD until 1905. Reserved for the most extreme crimes. A trained executioner would make small, precise cuts across the body, shallow and deliberate, removing flesh in small pieces over an extended period while keeping the condemned alive. Imperial records specified the number of cuts required. The most severe crimes required 3,600. The executioner's skill was judged on how long they kept the condemned alive. Death too early was considered a failed execution. There are accounts of executions lasting entire days. Photographs exist. They were published in European newspapers in the late 1800s and caused international outrage. Lingchi was abolished on April 24, 1905. It had been in continuous use for approximately 1,000 years. 10 punishments, all real, all documented, all carried out by actual human beings on other human beings in the name of justice. And before you feel too comfortable, drawing and quartering ended in 1782. Boiling alive was still happening in the 1800s. Lingchi ended in 1905. Your great-grandmother could have been alive for that last one. History is not as far away as it feels.